Hey everyone, John Piniella here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, The Guitar, Just Because We Love It. Today I want to talk to you about my story. How did this all happen for me? So let's dive right in. Well, the first thing you need to know, unlike so many others, it wasn't the Beatles. It was my brother. It was my brother who I believe was the catalyst for all of this. So how did that happen? Well, I remember that night, my parents let us stay up later, my brother and I, so that we could watch the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I remember coming away from that thinking, it's okay, it was kind of cool. I liked it, but I didn't feel this like, oh my God, this is life-changing, or, this is what I really want to do. I want to be a guitar player. I didn't have any of those feelings. I do remember that. But what happened was my brother started bugging my parents about buying him a guitar. And he bugged them for quite a while. And then one day, they decided to buy him a very inexpensive, sort of 3/4 size acoustic guitar. And as it is with most little kids, the infatuation of that guitar wore off in, 3 days, maybe a week at most. And there it was, sitting in the pile with the rest of the toys that you don't play with anymore. But for some reason, it kind of captured my attention. And I started messing around with it. I had no clue what I was doing. I'm sure the action was a mile high. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. But I was playing around with it. And I started to take an interest in it. I was enjoying it. And I remember learning how to play a couple of notes here and there, and maybe a couple things that were remotely musical, single note stuff for a little kid, but nothing to write home about. And then one day, and I don't even know how this happened, I heard Pipeline by the Ventures, and I remember thinking, okay, now that's cool. Maybe it was the reverb or the fact that it was an electric guitar, but it kind of grabbed me. And so I was able to pick off the notes to Pipeline because my mother saw that I had taken an interest, and she bought me this record called Play Guitar with the Ventures. And it came with like an instruction book. So for every song that was on that record, the instruction book would have little things about how you would go about learning to play that song. So lo and behold, I learned how to play Pipeline. I learned how to play Walk Don't Run. And, now I'm really starting to get pulled into this thing. I was starting to really think about, this is cool. I can actually do it. And I'm having a good time. So my imagination kicked in. And what I would do is I would get this big rigid plastic egg crate kind of thing that my father had down in his workshop. And I would bring it into the living room and I would stick a broom handle in it. And in my mind, I was pretending that I was on stage standing behind a microphone. So the broom handle was sort of the microphone stand. And I remember standing up on that little egg crate with that broomstick in front of me. And I was actually playing along to Walk Don't Run and playing along to Pipeline. And it was the coolest thing ever, at least in my mind. And my parents took notice of it, and they thought it was pretty cool as well. So that's kind of how it started when I was really, really young. Now, you fast forward a few years, and you've got the Rolling Stones doing their thing, and all of a sudden you've got this band called The Who, and there was the Dave Clark 5, and I was loving all that stuff, and I was really interested in especially the guitar sounds. Even at a young age, I was already becoming aware and focusing on guitar sounds. And how are they doing all this? And so it started to happen to me. Like I referred to in my first video, I was bitten. I got bit by that guitar bug real good, and there was no turning back. So now you fast forward moving along, I'm getting into grade school, late grade school, middle school, and I was fixated on staring at the guitar pictures and amplifier pictures in the Sears Roebuck catalog. And in particular, the Silvertone guitar that came with the amplifier, that little 8-inch speaker amplifier that was built into the case. Well, my parents bought it for me. And oh my God, I just was head over heels. You know, I felt like now I'm in the big time. I've got an electric guitar. And it was the coolest thing. And so now I'm playing this electric, this Silvertone, which I really regret not having anymore. Aside from the fact that it's collectible, it would really be sentimental to me because it was the first electric guitar that I ever had. And I even had that cool little amplifier built inside the case, which didn't sound very good, but at the time I didn't know. And so that's what I was doing. I was learning everything that I can. I would listen to something that I liked on my parents' record player and try to figure out the guitar part. And I realized I had this ability to self-teach myself, which was really, really inspiring because it gave me the confidence that I needed to keep playing. Because like anything else, when you tackle something that you're not familiar with, you can easily become discouraged if you don't have this knack to kind of figure things out. So I was inspired, felt confident, knew I could do it. So now I'm in grade school and I'm playing a little band. You know, I forget what music we're doing, maybe Creedence Clearwater. I don't even remember. I still had that Silvertone guitar with that amplifier in the, you know, in the guitar case. It was barely loud enough. Half the time the drums drowned it out. But it was cool and it was all I had and it worked. Now around that time, all of a sudden, you know, things like guitar pedals, especially the fuzz tone, you know, that became a prevalent thing. And I remember my mom took me to a music store in Plainfield, New Jersey. I don't even remember the name, but I got a fuzz tone. And I remember thinking, oh man, now I'm really going places here. But what I was really excited about was I got 2 guitar chords. They were white and they were coiled. So no more straight chords. I got the cool ones. I got the ones that were coiled. So I remember going home and plugging that fuzz tone in through that little speaker in the side of the guitar case, and I was having a ball. I just loved it. And then the wah-wah hit the scene, and I remember, oh man, I got to get one of those. But what was happening to me was playing the guitar, learning the guitar was critical, but it was also this whole thing about acquiring knowledge about the gear. Now, if you think to back then, in the late 60s, early 70s, gear was not a thing like it is today. But there was gear, and I was obsessed with all of it. I was drawing pictures of Marshalls and Vox amps. I mean, heck, I got reprimanded in school for daydreaming because they caught me drawing pictures, literally, of Vox amps and Marshall amps with like a Strat and trying to draw a curly guitar chord between the amp and the Strat that I was drawing. I was completely mesmerized. You know, anytime there were pictures in any magazine, I would fixate on them. Whatever I could find or get my hands on or learn, that's all I really cared about. So now as I'm coming out of middle school, you know, I'm starting to become okay on the guitar. I get into high school and the world of the acoustic guitar is now introduced to me. Something that I really didn't know very much about, except if I go back to that guitar that my parents bought my brother way back when. But what happened was that I got myself a Gibson Blue Ridge, which Gibson only made for a few years. My father took me to a music store in Bloomfield, New Jersey that was called Bloometti's. And I bought a 1965, with the help of my parents, Gibson Blue Ridge. It was a pretty decent acoustic guitar, and I still own it. And today I use it as my Nashville tuning guitar. Sounds great. But what was really cool was I had a buddy in high school whose name was Will Brunson, and he liked to play acoustic guitar. So we were like the traveling duo. We would go to all the different high school parties, play in the park. We just loved to play. And we were doing Dan Fogelberg, James Taylor, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Neil Young, Jackson Browne, all that kind of stuff. And I really got into it, and it made me a much better player. Now, around that time, I started to realize that what I really loved more than anything was chord progressions, chord voicings, and riffs. I wasn't really gravitating towards the solos on acoustic guitar, or more importantly, on an electric guitar. Now, about a week ago, I watched an interview that Keith Richards just gave, a very recent interview. And he made a comment to the guy who was interviewing him that I just loved. He said, you know, solos come and go. Riffs last forever. And I'm like, yep, you're right. And that's me. I have fun playing a guitar solo, but I'm really having a great time when I'm doing chord progressions, I'm playing riffs, different chord voicings. That's what I love more than anything. And what happened was, between Dan Fogelberg and Keith Richards, I started to get into open tunings. I remember listening to Fogelberg and I was like, how come I can't figure out hard to say? How come I can't figure out the reach? Like, what the hell is he doing? And I don't even know how I figured it out, but it hit me that he was using a different tuning. And so I learned open D, I learned open G, and I started to learn how to play some of his songs in the tunings that he wrote them in. Now, at the same time, I was starting to figure out that Keith Richards was onto something that other guys weren't, which was playing open tunings on an electric guitar. And I really got into that stuff, learning how to play all those really cool rhythm parts that he played in the Stones, playing an open G. So as I'm coming out of high school, I'm really kind of finding myself in terms of the kind of player I wanted to be, which was a really good rhythm player, playing good riffs, using alternate tunings when it made sense. I would play a solo if I had to, but I got greater joy out of the other stuff. Now, while this is all going on, the level of obsession for the guitar gear is just escalating. I'm looking at everything I can get my hands on. I'm becoming completely gear obsessed about guitars, pickups, the way they work, how guitars are built. Different guitars are used for this and that. Why would you use a 12-string over a Strat? All the different types of amps that were starting to show up on the market and how they sounded different, what guys used them for. All that stuff fascinated me. Now I'm in college and I'm just like becoming really into the whole Pete Townshend thing. I could not get enough of his riffs and chord progressions in those really cool sus chords that he uses all the time. It's really his signature sound. But at the same time, the man crush on the Gibson SG became apparent. I could not get enough of that guitar. I thought that was the coolest looking thing I had ever seen. I also thought to myself, I'll never have enough money to buy one of those, but I was obsessed with the SG. And of course, at that time, Townshend was playing an SG Special that had two P90s in it compared to the SG Standard that had the PAFs. But it didn't matter to me about the pickups. It was the look, and it had to be red. It had to be that beautiful mahogany with that deep red. Oh my God, I couldn't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, I remember the first time I saw The Who at Madison Square Garden, he was prancing around that stage with that SG Special, jumping up in the air like he did with the windmill, hitting the power chords. I was fixated on the guitar. I was listening to the music, but I literally was following that guitar. Everywhere it went on that stage, I was right on it because I just thought, this guitar is amazing. It's the coolest looking thing ever. And you know what? One day, hopefully I can get one. Well, that dream became a reality. One day when I was in college, I walked into Jack's Music Shop in West Long Branch, New Jersey. And I remember walking in, and there it was on the wall. An SG Standard, beat to crap. It was so beat and abused. But I didn't care because it was the right color and it was the right guitar. And I had enough money to buy it because I was working on the weekends at Bloomingdale's, saving my money, and I bought that SG. Man, I thought I died and went to heaven. I'm like, okay, I made it now. I got that SG. So now I've got this obsession with learning all the Who songs. The problem was I was playing through an Ampeg Gemini 2. That was my amplifier. The furthest thing from what Pete Townshend used, and it was really hard to get his tone, but it didn't matter. I was learning all his songs. And so through my college years, I was really into The Who, trying to learn all their songs, playing that SG. Man, I was loving it. Same time, this whole thing about gear is getting out of hand. I'm starting to buy guitars. I'm collecting pedals. I think I had 2 amps, which I never thought I would own 1, let alone 2. And it just was the coolest thing for me. I just felt like I'm in heaven. So now I'm out of college, I have a real job, and I'm working in a wedding band, which was a whole hell of a lot of fun for the years that we did it. But as I started to get further along in my career and start to have a better income, now I'm starting to acquire instruments, which is when this whole collecting thing kicked in. And the problem with me was, once I bought it, it wasn't going anywhere. Unlike a bunch of my buddies, they would buy a guitar, but then they would trade it to get another one. Or they would trade 2 to get one that was better than the 2 they traded. I couldn't do that. They were like children, as you can see. If you look behind me, there's a boatload on the wall here. I just can't get rid of them. Once I buy them, they're with me forever. And so this collection started to grow. Little by little, I'm acquiring more guitars. Same could be said for pedals. Now, the funny thing about pedals is I'm not a pedal guy in terms of using them in the band. I use very limited pedals. I'm not like a big pedal board guy, but I sure as hell do own a lot of pedals because it's the whole collecting and the gear obsession thing. I can say the same thing for amplifiers. I own a lot of amps, but there's a few that are my go-tos, and the other ones, they're okay. But it's about the fact that I've got them more than the fact that I'm going to use them all the time. So I've got this collector thing going on, this gear obsession thing going on, and then this maniacal obsession to actually play. I still take lessons. I love taking lessons. Nothing better than learning new stuff on the guitar that I can try and put to use. So when you fast forward all the way now, 2022, and where I am today, it's just been a hell of a journey. From a young kid, 9 years old, picking up a guitar that my brother wanted no part of anymore, and to where I am today. I have a wonderful guitar collection. I have great recording gear, thanks to my son Timothy, who's a professional audio engineer. I've gotten into recording, and I'm getting pretty good at it. I can capture some really good guitar tones, and learning how to write drum tracks and things. It's just so cool. So that's me. That's my story. It's nothing special, probably nothing unique. I mean, hell, there's people all over the world no different than me and have a very similar story to tell. The only difference is that they have a different name, but it's the journey. So that's my story. That's how John Piniella got to where he is today, and this unbelievable love and passion for this wonderful instrument and all things that are related to it. So before I leave you today, I'd like to ask you a couple of favors. If you like what I have to say and what I'm doing, please hit that like button. That'll really make me happy. And oh, by the way, if you can, please subscribe. And also, please hit the bell. So when I put up a new video, you're going to be notified. And I'd love to hear from you guys. What's your story? Send me an email. You can find my email on my YouTube channel. Write me a note in the comments. What's this story for you? How did this all happen for you? But at the end of the day, it's why we're here. What is it about the guitar? Well, it's just because we love it. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. You guys take care.